Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rechak Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Joel, the second chapter. As you can see, the terrible visitation. And in here, right, Joel goes into the vision that he sees of the nuclear destruction, as he describes it as a army. But also, as we go on through, you'll see the blessings, right, that the Lord, says he would bring, if Israel turns back to him and seeks him with a contrite spirit and sincere heart. So this is the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 1. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, which is when you blow the trumpet, there are different sounds, right, that they were making. They would indicate different things. And so blowing the trumpet was to basically get the attention of the people, in this case, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. So in this case, it was it's to alarm the people, right, and get and let them be aware of the destruction that's coming. And now the way we're doing that is by prophesying, by doing these lessons. Okay, so we're constantly sounding the alarm. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord Yahweh cometh, for it is nigh at hand. All right, and the day of the Lord that that Joel is speaking about here is the time of the destruction. Okay, that's coming, and that's why he mentions that the inhabitants should tremble, because it's nigh at hand. So it's going to be a very destructive time, as other prophets have also seen. For example, Isaiah, right, in the 13th chapter, he describes scenery similar, right, in terms of the destruction and also the reaction of the people to what Joel saw. A day of darkness and gloominess. And when you go into the word gloominess, it goes into calamity, wickedness, a day of clouds and of thick darkness. And when you have clouds gather, that's how you have that darkness, right? Like before it rains, you have these thick clouds that like gather, and then it causes that dark that darkness upon the face of that region. So Joel is describing this day that he's seeing, as a very dark day, right, and of thick darkness as the morning spread upon the mountains. All right, and basically the morning going into dawn, right? So the scene here, because when it's dawn, it's still dark out, but it's morning, right? So he's describing this day as like, suddenly it almost looks like it's dawn, where it's dark everywhere. A great people and a strong. Now it says people here, but it's not actually talking about humans. This great people is here. He's likening the missiles that are being shot off from different parts of the world that he saw in his vision to this quote unquote great people, okay, and strong. There hath not been ever the like. Let me actually look into this word people. All right, so it says I'm nation, people, figuratively a flock, fold, men, nation, people, collectively troops or attendants, right? So he's describing this because the missiles, when they're fired off, they're gonna be they're gonna be a lot, right? They're gonna shoot a whole bunch of different missiles together. If you've seen like different scenes of them testing certain missiles, the ones where they fire off like a good amount, back to back to back, it's gonna be so many of them. It's likened onto like a great army. There hath not been the like, or been ever the like, meaning there's nothing that has been like this, neither shall be any more after it. And this is what highlights that this has to be referring to those nuclear missiles, because when you deal with the time of Jacob's trouble, which shortly after that, as the scriptures say in Matthew 24, you're going to have those missiles shot off, right, to end it. and the return of Yahushai, um, there has not been ever the like. From the inception of the world up until this Third World War, nothing is going to be like that war, right? Not because these weapons haven't existed in the past. Okay, it's now that the Lord put the Spirit upon them to invent these weapons and to use them in such manner. And after they're used, there's going to be no more nuclear war, nuclear weapons. All of that is going to be done. Okay, so it's created for a specific point in time. In fact, a time that has been, that there's never been a time like that before, for weapons that you've never seen before used. Okay, it says even to the years of many generations. So after this vision that he saw comes to pass, going on into the future, because you're gonna have the kingdom at that point, there's gonna be no time that's gonna be like that again. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. Now, when you look into this word before, you have panyam, and you can have like in front of you, and it can also mean in your presence, right? So when it says here, or like it says here, in front of, before, in front of, in the presence of, toward. So when it says a fire devoureth before them, when those missiles get close, before they hit ground zero, they release nuclear warheads or warheads. And those warheads are what detonate when they hit their target, right? Or when they that impact between them and the building or the land or whatever. So in their presence, that fire devoureth, that fire that comes forth of the reaction that's caused on whether atomic level or whatever level these reactions are caused at, to create that fire. And behind them a flame burneth, which is the actual visual of the missile itself. Because when you look at a missile being launched, most of it, when you look at how they're launched, they have that fire at the very end, like a rocket that's propelling it. Okay, and some of these, like the ICBMs that have to travel across continents, they shoot them at an angle, and they have different parts, right? The first part gets it to a certain height, and then it breaks off, and then the next part propels it even further, and then that breaks off, and then another part, until it makes an arch, right, in the atmosphere, and then like descends back down upon its target. So there's that fire or that flame or that energy that's propelling or driving the missile from one location to another. Now, I'm sure they have, not every missile is like that. I'm sure they have other missiles that may not be driven by fire per se. They may use a different mechanism to drive it forth. But from what Joel is seeing here and describing, this had to be one of the ones that he witnessed, right? It says here, the land is as the Garden of Eden before them, right? So before these missiles hit their target, you have, like, even America, right? We know America or Babylon is a target in prophecy to be hit by those missiles. And as as demoralized as this place is, there's still certain regions in here where you have a lot of greenery, right, and trees. And that's why he said it's like the Garden of Eden before them, before the missiles hit, and behind them after they've detonated, and that heat wave has spread. It's like a desolate wilderness. Okay, so it's basically like a nuclear wasteland. Yea, and nothing shall escape them. Right. If you, matter of fact, I have a clip here from Independence Day, and this is showing fire from a chariot burning, right, hitting this place. But you can it gives you still the visual of something you can play in your mind to try and see when the missiles hit, how that fire, because it's all fire at the end of the day. It's like explosion, but it's a large amount of fire, and how it travels and the effect that it has and the damage that it causes, right? So when you look at how that fire travels, you'll see, like in that clip, you got people trying to escape by helicopters, by plane, by cars, and they all failed, because the don't underestimate when that warhead hits, the blast radius and the fire that spreads forth is very, very, very quickly. Okay, it's a very, very quick spread of fire from the epicenter to however wide the blast radius is, and anything caught within that I don't know, circumference or whatnot is gonna get toasted, roasted, cooked. That's why it says, and nothing shall escape them, not buildings, not people, not animals. Verse 4, the appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. And what the reason Joel is saying this is because, remember, in his time, he's comparing um, something in the future that he's never seen before to something that he is familiar with. So by seeing how these missiles are launched in formation, right? If there's if they say like 50 missiles are being launched at the same time to one location, you'll see there's a first row, then the next row, then the next row. So if there's like, I don't know, 10 silos or 5 silos that are shooting 10 at once, they're gonna shoot the first 10, they're gonna shoot the next 10, they're gonna shoot the next 10, and it's gonna be like missiles flying in rows in formation. And that's why he likened it onto like the appearance of horses, because when you look on a battlefield, the horses are also formed in like battle array, and you have the first line goes, the second line goes, the third line goes, as they charge into that battlefield. As it says, as horsemen, so shall they run. Which these missiles don't have feet; they're not going to actually run; they're going to be flying. Verse 5: like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains, shall they leap. Right, so he's describing the sound as if you watch any videos of of missiles being launched from their silos, you have that sound of it launching, right? That fire, that fiery sound, and then as it's flying through the sky, because when you have a large object flying through the sky at a fast rate, it creates a sound. Like when you hear jets that fly over you, they're very loud. And then also when they when they're flying, whatever, if it's overhead or whatnot, you can hear the actual sound of it. And he's likening that to like the sound of chariots running on the top of mountains. As it says, shall they leap? When you go into the word leap, it is it's basically like to dart, right? It says here to make, to skip, to dance, to leap, to spring about wildly, right? Or for joy. So you can imagine, a missile being shot from the silo. Maybe it's a ballistic missile, because you have some missiles that when they're shot off, they move in a they don't move in a linear way. They'll move like, that's why I think the Apostle John described it as a serpent, right? A fiery flying serpent, because sometimes they'll move like that in the sky, leaving that that smoke trail. As it says here, shall they leap like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. So once again, going into the formation and how they're shot off from their silos and traveling through the air. Before their face, the people shall be much pained. So what he's seeing is when people look up, right, or when they look and they see those missiles coming, they have that face of fear. Right, so before the presence of the missiles, because the face there goes into the Hebrew word, I believe it's panya, or here panyam, which is the same word, right? Which can go into like your actual face or your presence. Now we know missiles don't have like an actual like face like a human does, but in their presence, when people start to see the missiles enter a place close by to them, they're gonna be afraid. Right? As it says, the people shall be much pained. And what that looks like is people screaming, people running. When I play this clip, you'll see that. All faces shall gather blackness. When you go into the word blackness, it means to be distressed. And slakya, they're like mowing the grass outside. Interesting time to do that, right? But anyway, it says here, a flush of anxiety. Okay, so when they see this destruction coming, they're going to get anxious. They're going to be afraid. Verse 7, they shall run like mighty men. Now this is describing it's describing both the missiles, but also the when the warheads detonate and the fire, how it travels, okay, through the city, through the buildings, consuming everything in its path. That's what Joel is describing here, right? So he says they shall run like mighty men, they shall climb the wall like men of war, and that's describing the fire. They shall march every one on his way, and they shall not break their ranks, and that's describing the missiles, okay, actually flying through the sky. So you're not, when it says they're not going to break their ranks, you're not going to have one missile like they're let's say 5 are in a row and they're shot off, and then one just swerves to the left and crashes into another, and then you have this explosion, because the Lord is going to have his spirit guide them as well, as it mentions when we read on down. Neither shall, well, I just mentioned that, right? Neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path. So the path in which they've been shot, each of them are going to follow that. And when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded, because the missiles and the warheads that are shot from them are destroying everything that they hit. So whether it's a nuclear defense system that tries to shoot at it, because that's what they do, the nuclear defense or missile defense system tries to shoot and detonate the missile in the air before it actually hits the ground. Okay. And so, as it says here, when they fall upon the sword, whether it's a gun, an actual sword, bullets, whatever it is, they're going to destroy everything in their path. That's why it says they shall not be wounded, because you're talking about fire. All right. Thermonuclear fire. You can't shoot that. You know what I'm saying? You can't cut that. You cannot extinguish that. Verse 9, they shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall. They shall climb up upon the houses. They shall enter in at the windows like a thief. So now I'm going to play this clip here. So this, like I said, is a scene from a chariot shooting down fire. But it's just going to show you how, when you have such a large amount of fire devouring a city, how it behaves or how it moves. In similar or in like manners, how it's going to be when the missiles hit, because they're also going to produce that large fire, like a lake of fire. So you see that we mentioned what that they enter in at the windows like a thief. Well, that's exactly what happens here, right? And then boom, it just breaks through, and then it just burns everything. Okay, so that's what he's seeing and describing. You got people running, right? They shall not escape. You have the cars hitting. I muted it on purpose, not trying to get no copyright. Look at that, running through the walls, right? Climbing the buildings. That, you see that right there? Right? Before their face, the people shall be pained. He's afraid. He has the look in his eyes of, yeah, I'm not even gonna get out this car, because I'm just gonna wait to be cooked. Okay, all faces shall gather blackness. He got major anxiety right now. All right, you see that? His lips are trembling. People are trying to flee, right? You see that helicopter's trying to escape. And then boom, the fire catches it. So if you see how the fire is spreading through the city, right? It's going up the walls of the buildings. It's going through every nook and cranny. It's basically devouring everything in its path. This is a laser from a chariot, but when the missiles hit, it's going to be just like that, okay, if not worse. And you see that? People are running. Boom, just like that. So this is just a little visual going back to Joel 2. And now continuing from verse 10, it says, the earth shall quake before them, which is going into earthquakes. And that's because the impact from the missiles hitting the actual land in different parts with such force is going to cause a shifting or a rift in the tectonic plates underneath that have been etched together, having that tension built up. That sudden force hitting can cause those rifts, and those rifts leads to those earthquakes. Okay, it says the heavens shall tremble. When you go into the word tremble there, it means to quake. And that's because, as it says in Isaiah, the earth is going to reel to and fro like a drunkard. So the earth with its atmosphere is going to be shaking. So imagine that day. It's going to be a crazy, crazy day. the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. Because with all the smoke, right, the mushroom clouds, which smoke eventually becomes black, it's going to form a layer, right, up between the land and the part of the atmosphere where the sun and the moon and the stars are. Okay, and that layer is going to block out that light coming down, so it's going to look like it's dark. Okay, that's why it says that the sun and the moon shall be dark. It doesn't mean that the sun itself is just going to go black, but it may be daytime, but it'll look like nighttime because of that, like smoke screen, or you know, that cloud of smoke blocking the atmosphere. And also on a symbolic note, the sun and the moon are also representative of or symbolic of knowledge and wisdom. And so that them being dark signifies that in that time, people are not going to have any answers there, right? The wise men are not going to have any solutions. As it says in 2nd Ezra 16, there shall be no man left to comfort them. All right. I think in I forget which chapter, but it mentions it's wisdom no more in Teman, because they're gonna Isaiah 47 mentions that evil is gonna rise up, and they're not gonna know from whence it riseth. They're not gonna be able to remedy this destruction, because they're gonna start it, but the Lord is gonna take over and it's gonna get out of their hands. Verse 11, and the Lord Yahweh shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great. And that army is referring to the missiles, right? in this context here, and the camp as well. When you read in Isaiah 13, right, I believe it mentions the Lord and the weapons of his indignation. And the reason it mentions this is like I was going into before, because the Lord is going to be commanding these missiles. For he is strong that executeth his word, right? He is declared it, and he shall bring it to pass. For the day of the Lord Yahweh is great and very terrible. Who can abide it? Right. And when he mentions who can abide it, it's like, it's to put emphasis on how bad it's going to be. Like, it's going to be so crazy that, like, who can possibly even survive a time like this? Which we know that the Lord is going to have mercy on his elect and deliver them. But if you are on the land or the soils of a place that's targeted to get hit, like Babylon, you're not going to abide it. You're not going to survive it if you're not of the elect. Verse 12, therefore also now, saith the Lord Yahweh, turn ye even to me with all your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning. Now, keep in mind and remember that when we read in the first chapter, at this point in time when Joel is prophesying, the Lord was plaguing Israel, right, with droughts, with wildfires, with locusts devouring their crops. So they were experiencing, famine-like situations with scarcity, and so as Joel, as we're about to read, admonishes them to say, hey, turn back to the Lord, peradventure he'll have mercy on you, and this plagues that he's been sending upon you, he'll turn that into a blessing, so that you can finally have some crops, you can finally offer offerings, you can finally have the land yield to you the fruit like it did before. All right. But at the same time, the things that he is mentioning in terms of the blessing that the Lord would bring also is going to happen ultimately in the kingdom, right? When the Lord turns and has mercy upon his people. All right. But just remember in the context of what's happening here at the time of Joel and why he's saying these things. So it says here, therefore also now saith the Lord, turn ye even to me with all your heart. And the reason the Lord was plaguing them, when you read in the first chapter, is because they had gone after these other gods. Their heart had left from following the Lord. And with fasting and with weeping and with mourning, and rend your heart and not your garments. Because, you would, in the ancient world, you would rent or rend your garment as a sign of like being in distress or mourning. But here the Lord is saying, I want you to rend your heart. It doesn't mean grab your heart and rip it, but today they'll say like your heart, you are heartbroken. When you're broken, your physical heart is not actually broken. But what it means is you become of a sad and like contrite mind. which is the beginning step of repentance. So that's what the Lord is seeking here. He's saying, I don't care as much about your outward garments as I do about your mind. That through that sorrow, that godly sorrow, you may turn back to me. As the scriptures say, the Lord wants those that are of a broken and contrite spirit. And turn unto the Lord Yahweh your God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness, and repenteth him of the evil. See, so the evil that he is bringing to you, if you just turn back to the Lord, he's merciful. Okay, he is kind. He's slow to anger, and if you turn back to them, he'll repent of that evil. He'll turn it back. Who knoweth if he will return and repent and leave a blessing behind him? So, as Joel is saying, turn back and seek the Lord, seek mercy from the Lord. Peradventure, right? It could be that he'll have mercy, right? He'll leave a blessing. He'll turn this drought, this curse, this struggling you're going through, this plague that he's plaguing you with, into a blessing instead. Even a meat offering and a drink offering unto the Lord your God. And he mentioned that because when you read in the first chapter, they weren't able to offer meat offerings and drink offerings to the Lord because there was none. The land was dry, and the few that they were able to, the few crops they were able to grow, the locusts came and ate it. Different rounds of them. Verse 15: Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, sanctify a fast, call a solemn assembly. So gather everyone together for a serious gathering, right? Gather the people, sanctify the congregation, meaning make them clean, make them pure, right? If they've touched any unclean thing or anything like that, make sure they're clean, and let everybody come and join together. Assemble the elders, gather the children, and those that suck the breasts. Let the bridegroom go forth of his chamber, and the bride out of her closet. So basically, call everybody, right? Call like a nationwide assembly. Let the priests and the ministers of the Lord Yahweh weep between the porch and the altar. And when you go into the temple, you had the outward altar where the sacrifices were made, and then you had the entrance into the holy place, right? And so that whole outer court area was like the porch. So it says, let the priests come out and let them weep between the porch and the altar, or in other words, let them cry unto the Lord, and let them say, spare thy people, O Yahweh, and give not thine heritage to reproach, that the heathen should rule over them. And the heritage of the Lord is Israel. So he's saying, well, you have us in this condition. We're suffering. We're dying. Right? We can't even offer unto you. So, cry unto the Lord that he may have mercy, so that the heathen nations round about are not able to have us in reproach. Right? As it says, that the heathen should rule over them, meaning that we would be at their mercy, because if they saw that weakness in Israel and they decided to attack, we would be subject unto them. And I believe at this time, when you go according to the timeline of the blue letter, the Assyrian Empire would have been the empire at the time. Wherefore should they say among the people, where is their God? See, because it's like, well, these people that are always talking about their God, what happened to him? Look at them. They're going through, look at what they're going through. They can barely even have food to eat. Their cattle is starving off and dying off. X, Y, and Z. Basically an occasion for reproach. And as I mentioned, all these verses here, can be applied prophetically as well, right? Applying to us now and in a spiritual sense. But just looking at it from the lens of the context of the time that Joel was in, right? Based on the first chapter, we can see that at this point in time, Israel is actually suffering, these plagues by the Lord. That's why he was admonishing them and really exhorting them to band together and turn back to the Lord. So he's basically saying, look, I've seen this. I've seen the day of the Lord. It's crazy. It's bad. It's the God that we're talking about here is no joke. Okay, and the reason you're going through what you're going through right now is because you turned away from him. So turn back, gather together, repent, seek the Lord, and maybe he'll have mercy. right? Peradventure, he will have mercy. He's a merciful God. Verse 18, then will the Lord be jealous for his land and pity his people, right? Because now you cry unto the Lord and you seek him, he will, he will be jealous for his land, right? He'll consider it and have pity upon you. Yea, the Lord will answer and say unto his people, behold, I will send you corn and wine and oil, and ye shall be satisfied therewith. And I and I will no more make you a reproach among the heathen. Right? So I'm going to put an end to that reproach. I'm finally going to give you that rain. I'm finally going to give you that I have the land yield onto you, so you can have the corn, you can have the wine, you can have the oil. Once again, going back to the first chapter, it mentioned how the storehouses were made desolate because there was no corn, there was no wine. It mentioned the ye that love wine to mourn, because the new grape languisheth. All right. As it says, and ye shall be satisfied therewith, and I will no more make you a reproach among the heathen. So at this point in time, as Joel was telling them, the Lord would respond and he would have mercy upon you. But also, when you look at this verse, you can see how the Lord is going to do this in our time now, right? Because the same reaction the Lord would have to Israel at that time turning back to him is the same that he would have now. As it says, the Lord changes not. So, if our people, which, primarily have the elect that are doing that now, were to turn from their wicked ways and seek the Lord and cry unto him, guess what? He would turn that curse into a blessing onto us. Verse 20, but I will remove far from you the northern army, and I will drive him into a land barren and desolate. Now, in verse 20, this is mainly in a prophetic sense, right? Now, I'm sure at the time of Joel being on the scene, you did have the army of or the armies of the ruling power and having us under them and subject unto them, which eventually the Lord did deliver us from them, by having another nation take them down. But this is is mainly prophetic, and at the time in which Joel 2:20 would be fulfilled, Israel, or the majority of Israel, would be in America, or the land of the north. So when he says, I will remove far from you the northern army, he is referring to, and mainly in this time, when the Lord would cause the northern army, or the army of America, North America, to be removed. In other words, they would be deployed. That's the modern day word used for it, right? They would be deployed. And I would drive him into a land barren and desolate. And this is the land of the judgment of the Lord in what the world calls the Middle East. Okay. And his face toward the East Sea, which is referring to the Euphrates River, and his hinder part towards the utmost sea, which is the Red Sea. And this is interesting because in Revelation, it mentions that the Euphrates is going to be dried up so that the kings, may make their way. Where? Well, if they got to cross the Euphrates, then they're going towards this region where the Lord is going to gather them. Okay, otherwise known as the Valley of Jehoshaphat. As it says here, and his hinder part towards the utmost sea. So I pulled up here a map of the Near East, and you can see here this I believe is the Euphrates River, okay, which pours into the Persian Gulf, right into the Arabian Sea, and then you have the Red Sea over here. Okay, so his face being towards the East Sea, and his hinder part towards the Red Sea would be this region over here. Okay. And as it says here, and his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up. And that's talking about the dead bodies. Because when this war is said and done, there are going to be a lot of bodies that are going to be, basically decomposing, because he hath done great things. And this is going into the great evils that they have done concerning the people of the Lord and against the Lord, boasting themselves against the Lord as well. And this is referring to the northern army. But the he that has done great things in that context is Esau, Edom. He's the one who is in charge of the northern army, okay, in this time. Verse 21, fear not, O land, be glad and rejoice, for the Lord will do great things. So now, right, going back to the context here, as Joel is prophesying onto the people, right? Don't fear, and even to the land, don't be glad and rejoice, even though right now you're destitute, right? You're dry, you don't have water. Be not afraid, ye beasts of the field, for the pastures of the wilderness do spring. Now, let me pull up Joel 1, and I believe it was down around here. All right, because he even in the first chapter he even mentioned that, right, to call for an assembly, call for a fast. Here it is, Joel 1:18. How do the beasts groan? The herds of cattle are perplexed because they have no pasture. Yea, the flocks of sheep are made desolate. All right. So now in 2, he's saying here, be not afraid, ye beasts of the field, for the pastures of the wilderness do spring. Meaning the Lord is gonna have mercy. And now, instead of the land, as we read up above, where was it? Yeah, the field, Joel 1:10, the field is wasted, the land mourneth, the corn is wasted, the new wine is dried up, the oil languisheth, right? But in here, in Joel 2, when he says, turn back and seek the Lord, jumping back up to 19, yea, the Lord will answer and say unto his people, behold, I will send you corn and wine and oil, and ye shall be satisfied therewith, and I will no more make you a reproach among the heathen. See, so jumping back down to 22, as it says, be not afraid, ye beasts of the field, for the pastures of the wilderness do spring. For the tree beareth her fruit, the fig tree and the vine do yield their strength. Because at first they weren't, because the Lord was plaguing them. But by turning back to the Lord, he would restore the land and restore the crops thereof, lest we perish. And likewise in this time and in this manner, which it's more in a spiritual sense, but by turning to the Lord, he would turn this plague that we're under, these curses and this harsh, severe way of living, into a blessing. Because right now we don't live exactly like we used to in the past. So the literal word for word blessing, as we're reading here in Joel 2, that the Lord gave to Israel back then for turning back to him, it wouldn't apply the same in the same exact way in this time, right? Because we don't own vineyards, right? We don't own fields where we have fig trees and so on and so forth. Verse 23, be glad then, ye children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord Yahweh your God, for he hath given you the former rain moderately. See, because he took it away. And they were warned by Moses that, hey, this is a land where you can't afford to do what you want, right? You need to depend on the Lord, because he's going to cause the rain that's going to come down that you need to survive. And if you turn your backs to the Lord and he stops giving you that rain, you're going to be done for. But here, as Joel is saying, be glad, because the Lord has given you the former rain moderately, and he will cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain and the latter rain in the first month. So as to where, you weren't able to really grow anything because the land was so dry, now you're going to have the rain, so you can have the proper sowing and you can have the proper proper harvest, right? And no more will the husbandmen need to be ashamed, right? Or the vine dressers, as it says, because the harvest of the field perisheth. So the Lord will turn that upside down, right? Turn it into a blessing. And the floors shall be full of wheat, and the fats shall overflow with wine and oil. And I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten, and the cankerworm, and the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you. Right. And when you read in the first chapter, it mentions that. Yeah, let me see. Here it is. Joel 1:4, that which the palmer worm hath left, the locust eaten, or hath the locust eaten, and that which the locust hath left, hath the cankerworm eaten, and that which the cankerworm hath left hath the caterpillar eaten. So all their crops, the few that they could get, it was torn up by them by the different waves and swarms of locusts. But here the Lord is Joel is saying the Lord is now going to have mercy on you for turning back to Him, and all the loss that you had at the hand of the locust that the Lord sent, He's going to restore it. And ye shall eat in plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord Yahweh your God, that hath dealt wondrously with you, and my people shall never be ashamed. And especially the my people shall never be ashamed is more pertinent to the kingdom, because even though at this time the Lord restored, rain and took away the plague, right, and His people did rejoice. Some time after that, as we know, we still went into captivity. We were still subject to the heathen. In fact, here we are today, and we are ashamed, right? So this never being ashamed is really something that would apply more so from our time now going into the kingdom once we are fully delivered. And so, although this is although He's referring to their immediate troubles that the Lord alleviated, it's also applicable to the ultimate troubles of Israel, right, that the Lord is going to alleviate. So like I mentioned before, right now, we're not necessarily suffering locusts eating our crops, okay, in which the Lord would restore to us. But the modern day version of that would be the lacking, right, and wanting for all things, having to go to the heathen for these things, right, and us constantly lacking what we would need, the resources to live a full and wholesome life. And the way the Lord restores that back to us is by delivering us from this captivity. Okay, so that's why I mentioned that, the things that Joel is talking about in this chapter can be applied contextually, right, based on the situation of what was going on at the time, but it's also going to apply again on a whole or holistic level when the Lord delivers Israel. Verse 27, and ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord Yahweh your God, and none else. And my people shall never be ashamed. Once again, reiterating that point of recognizing that, this is the God of Israel. We cried unto Him, and He heard us, and He delivered us, right? And ultimately, we're never going to be ashamed anymore, right? I think if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's in Hosea, right, that it shall be said unto them, ye are the people of the living God, where it was said unto them that ye are not the people of the Lord. So that's also going into not being ashamed. Verse 28, and it shall come to pass afterward, right? So after the Lord had done all these things, from the time of Joel in a more future date, that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Now, when it says your sons and daughters shall prophesy, it doesn't mean that they would turn into prophets per se and go out and start prophesying. The word prophesy means to say before, right? Or to speak something before it happens. And the way they would be able to do that is through visions, right? And certain, things that the Lord would reveal to them and show them, most often in visions. And they would say, hey, I saw X, Y, and Z. And by them telling you the things they saw before those things actually happen, that would be how they would prophesy. And your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. And even up until today, you have people that all over the world, even heathens, that will commit to video and show like, hey, I had a dream and this was happening and that was happening. And in a sense, they are prophesying because we can confirm those things through the scriptures that we know have been prophesied to happen, right? And they'll say, and I saw this, and there was this UFO, or there was this war, and there was fire everywhere, and people were getting burnt up, and they're saying the things that are going to happen before they happen. But that's because they saw it in a dream or in a vision. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit, right? That they may have those dreams and visions. Verse 30, and I will shew wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. And these would be signs of what? The day of the Lord. The sun shall be turned into darkness, right? So going into those signs, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood. And that's where you have your blood moons, right? Your different eclipses. These are all examples of signs that would be happening in the earth and in the heavens to indicate that we are in the time of the day of the Lord. So the Lord said, what? The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord Yahweh come. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord Yahweh shall be delivered. This is referring to those amongst Israel, in particular the elect. The colon tells you the next thought is a direct relation to this first part, whether it's to expound upon it or to continue upon the thought or to give an example. So as it says, for in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance. So whosoever that's going to call upon the name of the Lord would have to be of the stock of Zion, right, or Jerusalem, which represents Israel. And we know those that are going to do that in sincerity and are going to be heard and delivered are the elect of the nation of Israel. As the Lord Yahweh hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. They are the ones that are going to call upon his name and be delivered. Because you're going to have other Israelites call upon the name of the Lord, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be delivered. And that brings us to the end of the book of Joel, the 2nd chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.